when I was a child, I come home from seminary, and we'd had time between seminary and school. So I come home for a few minutes, and invariably, Grandpa had the game Mastermind all ready for me, and we would play a game of Mastermind between seminary and school, and then I'd come home for lunch, and he would come home for lunch, and so we'd play another game of Mastermind. And if it wasn't Mastermind, it was chess and checkers, and we were always playing games, and I absolutely loved that. And with a memory with Mom is she taught me how to sew way better than the schools did. And if I made a mistake, I didn't want to rip it out. I would get frustrated, and I'd just hand it to Mom, and Mom always got to rip it out for me. And because she did that, I continued with sewing, and I love it. And now I don't mind ripping things out, but it was because of Mom. So
I remember a trip in the airplane to Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And he knew when I was awake because that tiger milk would be, he'd say, "Oh, you must be awake now because I can smell that tiger milk." He used to like those tiger milk bars, and that's what he brought for our flight. And that's how he knew I was awake, because most of the flight I was asleep. But I loved it. It was great. It was really hot when we got there, and really, really smoldering when we got there. And he was very, very kind and patient with me, with being too hot. And Mom was sewing a couple years ago, and we'd listen to a book, and we'd sew together or watch Hallmark together and enjoy talking and sharing, and it was awesome with both of you. Thank you.
When I was younger, Grandma watched us when our parents were out of town, and she had to take us, me, Maddie, and Knight, to Sabrina's basketball game in Vernal, and we accidentally went the wrong direction for about an hour, but we were able to turn around, and she didn't complain at all, and then we made it, and we stopped at like Subway, so I really love that memory.
My turn? Okay. Yesterday I got to say goodnight to them, and I was super happy to say goodnight to them.
My favorite memory is getting M&Ms at their house, the quarters, and you like have to walk up to Grandpa and figure out what you need to say to get the quarter. And yeah, it's always a fun time. M&M machine.
I also love the M&M machine, but one of my favorite memories of Grandma and Grandpa is the water slide. The water slide that Grandpa would set up in the back with the hose. And at first, I didn't think Grandma and Grandpa actually used the slide. And so I'd be going down, and then all of a sudden Grandma and Grandpa came down together, and I remember that, and I really enjoyed that. Thought it was fun.
So fun. My favorite memory with Grandma is making or sewing dresses for dolls together. She would help me and Sabrina sew different dresses and aprons and all sorts of fun things. And then my favorite memory with Grandpa is flying with you in your plane, and I was terrified, but I was like, I'm with Grandpa, I'll be okay. And I was okay, but anyways, those are my favorite.
Your dad. Yeah, go back. Oh. Don't want to skip Carl.
Hey, just a quick comment about Al and Linda, Mom and Dad. They are the most talented people of so many things. Like if I needed to learn how to do something, or they just would know how to do it. Living in Longmont, I learned a lot of skills, helping them build a patio, running electricity, using a lathe. We did a gazebo, and learning how to do shingles and make straight lines with strings and packing things down. It was just all fundamental skills that as a society we're losing, that as a group, some people, but it was nice to learn lots of math skills. Thank you.
One of my favorite memories is when I got sick at Grandma and Grandpa's house when I was really little. I drank out of this green cup, and Grandma wrote my name on it. And now for the past 16, 17 years, there's a green cup that says Carl on it in Grandma and Grandpa's cupboard. And more recently, Grandma's been teaching me how to relocate shrubbery around her house. And Grandpa's been teaching me electrical, so it's been really fun hanging out with them.
My favorite memory was, it was just like 2 hours ago when I took Grandpa on the four-wheeler. And then my favorite memory with Grandma was probably, I remember one time she gave me a quarter for the quarter machine for the M&M.
I was really young when I first, I don't know, I've just been really young, so I haven't really remembered a whole bunch. But I think first meeting them is definitely one of my biggest favorites. And just being around them makes me really happy. And they've taught me a lot about how to I'm just glad because they've made me feel really loved. And I love having the feeling of being loved. It's a really nice feeling, so I'm really glad that I'm able to have that feeling and to be able to say that they're my grandparents.
One of my first memory of Al and Linda is when I came home from my mission and they brought Janice over to our house at an open house. I think they were hoping that that Janice would hook up with my brother John. And then short time later, I got engaged to another girl, and I can remember being down at the beach, and I introduced her, this is my fiance, and the look on Linda's face was, and the girl said to me, she goes, what was that about? I said, well, I think she wants me to marry her daughter. Yeah. So it ended up that I did marry her daughter, so it was a good thing. But, and at the same time, Al was always, I remember him being on this, he always looked very stoic, and it wasn't until you got to know him that you found out that he had a good humor to him. But I remember one time, the one and only time I flew with him in his plane, we were at the John Wayne Airport, and we were going down the runway, and he goes, we should be off the ground by now. And not that I was heavy, because I was lighter than I am now, but it just made me realize, some planes are not always built for, big people. So that was the first and last time I ever flew in that plane.
All right. Mine is just from 6 months ago. I got to come and spend time with Mom and Dad, thanks to Aunt Mary. She got me out here, and I got to just hang out by myself with them. I'm just thankful to be a part of this family. But the ping pong was my favorite. Like getting to play ping pong with Dad and watch Hallmark movies with Mom just for like 4 days straight. Not doing anything else. I think we took a trip to Sam's Club or something, but that was probably my favorite time, was just to get to spend some time alone with you guys. So, and I love you.
One of my favorite memories is when Larry and I were just engaged, and I was in California. I moved back to California for a month before we were going to get married, and I had just met Larry's parents, and they were awesome, and we were going to the house where I was going to be living. My roommates were going to meet Larry for the first time, and Grandpa had a great idea, because when I left that apartment, those roommates saw me. I was engaged to another guy, and it didn't work out, and it was, all this big thing, and I left and went back home, and then I came back engaged to someone else, and so they were all a little worried about me, like it hadn't been a lot of time.
And he had a great idea. He's like, okay, you're going to meet, introduce Larry to your roommates for the first time. I'm going to go in there with you. And so I walked in with Grandpa, and my roommate, we walk in the door, and I'm like, hi, it's so good to see you. I want to introduce you to my fiance. This is Larry. And she looked at him, and just the blood drained from her face. She turned white, and she just I could tell she was like, oh, Kayleen, no. What have you done? And I couldn't hold it together, and I just burst out laughing. And then, of course, she knew it was a joke. And then Larry came in. And it was the perfect segue, because then I knew they were going to love Larry. But that's one of my favorite memories. And as far as with Mom, I mean, just that first time when I first met them, and I was just so excited, and just your family was so warm and loving and friendly, and Jim and Janice took me on a little outing with them and their family, and just I have some really fond memories of that time. So love being a part of this family.
And let's see, when growing up, we had Pinewood Derbies. So Dad helped me build, and all the kids build, or all the boys, one Pinewood Derby car after another. That was a big thing, and we would go copper plate the little wheel bearings and everything, and I usually ended up either winning or being, really close or something, and that really was a lot of fun to spend that time with him, carving out the cars and everything. And then later on, for years he wanted to teach me auto mechanics. He'd bring me out to the car when he was repairing it. And I just was not interested. I'd be in the space and just thinking of other things. And then later on, years later, I got super excited about flying. And then mechanics became interesting to me. And so we spent a lot of time together rebuilding the airplane and working on engines and all sorts of things. And that was a wonderful thing to do together. Got to really get to know him better and spend a lot of time with him, and that was a great bonding experience. It's been a number of years I've been doing that. When we were real young, he'd get me electronic sets and show me how to do it, and that was a lot of fun too. He'd show me a lot of his electronic background, and it's fun to put things together and figure out why they worked, and then the time flying together. And then with Mom, she was always our spiritual confidant. We could go to Mom with any problem or any issue or any question, and she would give us comfort and love and counsel, and she was always wonderful for those kind of things. You could always rely on Mom to give you the right answers and to help you out in your struggling times. And she's made a lot of things for us, has sewn a lot of things for us, and including the latest one, some covers from my gyrocopter. But, her skills have been amazing. Both of them have been so richly blessed with a lot of talents, and we've all benefited from all of those talents, and we really appreciate it. And the most important one is the gospel, that they've, spent so much time ingraining in us how important the church was and how important the gospel was in our lives. And yeah, that was the most important of all.
Some of my favorite for both of you are mainly in your yard, first barbecues, and also the pond when I was there, just having fun with all the cousins and you guys, and then particularly for me, probably gardening one-on-one with you guys. Yeah. I'm always too emotional, but it's just such a great opportunity for lots of one-on-one time. And yeah, I just I mean, you guys know, it's just lots of time with you guys one-on-one was just really fun.
I remember the first time I met you guys. I remember wearing these black stilettos, and they had gotten a little dusty from walking outside or whatever. I hadn't noticed, but I came in and we were talking with Grandpa, and he was wearing socks. I remember while we were talking, he just like reached over with his foot and like dusted off my black stilettos. I remember just being so offended, like, are they really that dusty? So that was my very first memory of Grandpa, was him dusting off my shoes, so I was presentable for him, but it was funny. So didn't wear those black stilettos again around Grandma. And then just, yeah, with Nathan, last year we got to have the opportunity to take care of their yard for a whole season from spring to fall. And so I remember just learning so much because I had never gardened before. I was not a green thumb. I didn't know anything about it, but it was so fun, just me and Nathan getting to spend time with you guys and having Grandma teach me all about flowers and plants and when to trim certain bushes and how to take care of the trees. And I just learned so much, and I felt like a pro by the end, but it was so fun getting to learn all of that from you guys.
So I have the privilege of having lived with them for 2 years, and I have rather a collection of memories rather than just one final. I love random hugs with Grandma and her teaching me how to quilt, and I love Grandpa's witty remarks. They make me laugh so hard. But I've enjoyed my time with them and learned a lot from them.
So for Grandpa, I remember him specifically helping me replace the battery in my car and just little tips and tricks and all that. And so that's a memory that I have that I hold close to me. Short and sweet, but I just remember that one. And for Grandma, I love watching Hallmark movies just like she does. I'm a sucker for the romance. And so I remember she actually told me the first time of when her and Grandpa met and her first like kiss story at 16 and whatnot. And I was like 17 at the time, like, oh my gosh, you know, that's awesome. Wouldn't it be nice, you know? But yeah, so that's my memory with Grandma and Grandpa, so.
I would say my memories of both of you is how I just am so impressed with how eager you are to learn and to grow. I remember Ray telling me about the classes you would take, you know, stained glass classes, I think there's woodworking classes, all sorts of classes, how you were so eager to always be learning and growing. And that's such a good example to me, and I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate your generosity with your time and your talents. That has really blessed probably all of us. So, thank you.
One of my favorite memories is in 1980, we went around the country with our whole family, and one of my not favorite memories was sleeping in the water in the tent. But actually my favorite memory was while everyone else was arguing or sleeping, Grandpa and I would talk about church history and with Grandma, and we would talk about doctrine, and every time I would bring up a scripture, then Grandpa would quote it word for word. And then when Diane set me up on a blind date up in Idaho Falls, and I was in Mission Viejo, and so Grandma and Grandpa let me use their car, and I got to almost to St. George, and the car died. And we somehow, I don't know how, but got it to into St. George, and the repairman, this was a Saturday, and the dance was Saturday night. No, this was Friday, I guess. And the date was Saturday night, and because it was a dance at Rick's College. And the repair shop said it's a broken such and such computer thing, and we can get the part by Monday and have it repaired by Monday night, hopefully. And so I said, well, there goes my dance. So I called up Grandpa, and he knows the story better than I, but he called around and found the part. I think it was either half an hour or an hour away, drove up to the shop that had that part, jumped in the car, and drove however many 100 miles, 400 or however many 100 miles it is to St. George, arrived at like 2 in the morning, and with his flashlight replaced this electronic part, drove back home. I got from the hotel to the car in the morning, and it was ready to go. And we drove to the dance and got to have my date.
And Mom and Dad were the ones that set you up with her.
And Mom and Dad what?
Were the ones that set you up with her.
Or the ones that set me up with her. I didn't remember that part.
And who was his girl?
It wasn't important.
It was the date wasn't the important part. It was the dad that was the important part. And my favorite memory of Mom is every time when I came home from school, I would follow Mom around and doing her work, telling her about calculus and philosophy and history and English literature, and she had no idea what I was talking about, but she sure made her seem like she was interested.
We all can attest to that.
I think I've always looked up to Grandma and Grandpa ever since we started visiting and everything. But my favorite memories of Grandpa is probably when he took me up in his plane. That inspired me. All the things that, all the talents and skills that they have inspire me every day to continue my skills and things like that. And they've always been good examples, Grandpa and the skills, and Grandma and how loving and thoughtful she is. I've just noticed all these little details, and they hold me to a higher standard. So thank you.
With like all the other grandkids, I've loved all of the fun stuff with the water slides and the pond and the sewing. I loved doing that with you, Grandma. And one memory that stood out to me is playing games with you both, where we were playing card golf, and dominoes, and I thought it was the funnest thing ever because you two were hilarious. And I've loved getting to know both of you and your hearts, and especially your humor growing up. One memory in particular is when you took us to Cove Fort. I thought I was going to die going to go see a Pioneer thing, or I don't even remember what Cove Fort was even used for, but we're driving down this road in the RV, and I'm like, Grandpa, why are we going so slow? He's like, I just washed the RV. We're going like 5 miles per hour. And that trip, I got to know them so well, and it was, it was so much fun. So thank you.
One of my favorite was when we were in the backyard watching movies with the projector. It was super cool. They stayed out with us all night till like midnight or something. I was like, what kind of grandparents do that? It's awesome. Because my grandparents would go to bed at like 9 or 8, so that's super cool.
I really have enjoyed talking with Grandma. One time we were up for 6 hours straight just talking about her childhood, and it was really cool to get to know her that way and be able to see her faith-filled life. And then with Grandpa, oh my goodness, his humor just, it cracks me up. I had to go to the chiropractor for it. Oh, one of his jokes, like, we were in a car, we were driving along, and he's like, oh, it looks like you're gonna sell your car, like talking to my mom. And she's like, what? And he's like, the bird's already made a deposit on it.
So one of my favorite memories, well, my favorite memory of Grandma is every time she gives me a hug. I mean, she always comes and finds me out of a crowd and she says, I need my hug from my boy. And that always is so special to me. With Grandpa, I think one of my favorite memories is we were flying and we were pulling, getting close to the, let's see, we're about to land, and Grandpa goes to wind down the landing gear. Well, instead of winding it down, he's actually winding it up. And so and it was super windy that day, and we're coming in really, really slow, and I was very impressed with how he was able to land it. We get the two wheels on, and he's like, all right, it's time to put it down, and he puts it down right on the anchor. And that was the first time I heard Grandpa swear.
What did he say?
Did you say that was just the first time?
All right, let's see it. I've only known him for a short while, so I got to go jog my memory. One of the memories I have is of this little cart. I don't know, you can't call it a golf cart, but one that my dad made with a motor and four wheels and a little Jeep, yeah, go-kart. And we'd run that thing around the neighborhood, and we'd have to go charge it up. Dad showed us what to do to charge it up. We'd go hot wheeling around the yard at 5 miles an hour or whatever it was. That was a lot of fun. And
and Janice rolled it.
And then I remember a special time that me and my dad had. He took me fishing in our front yard. We had a 13-foot fishing pole, and he put a punk on the end of it. And he made one of his favorite balloon acetylene bombs. And we put it in the front yard under a newspaper, and gave me some earphones for ear protection, you know, those. And he said, get right up to it and just hold it there for a second. And all of a sudden this flash of light and the street would shake and windows would shake.
And the light that a quarter block down went out.
And cover. Boom.
And you felt it. That was one of my best fishing trips I ever had. And then, let's see.
Don't forget to tell about when he went camping with you, what you saw in his face.
Oh, you better tell this one.
There was the scout camp, you had Fathers and Sons overnight camp out, and you didn't take the motor home. You slept in the tent.
Yes,
yeah.
well, I was. Are you talking about when we went to empty out the RV? No, not that story.
No, when we slept in a tent, when we had an RV at home, and we didn't want to take the RV because all the boys would be with their dads in the tent. And in the morning, with the dew dropping from the inside on us, you made a remark, and you can't remember.
I don't remember.
We all remember it.
Everybody but you remember it.
What was it?
I see motorhome written all over your face. And it was.
And, all right, and a story about Mom. Mom knew that every child likes animals. And so Mom allowed us to have animals, and Dad put up with the animals. But Ray and I had parakeets when we were growing up, and Dad built an aviary in the backyard, a big bird cage in the backyard, and we had a couple of birds, and they had a couple of birds, and they had a couple of birds, and pretty soon we had 30 parakeets, and we had quail.
And a bunny.
I don't remember a bunny.
A big white bunny. The bunny
Okay.
over Eastern ended up in the cage with parakeets on it.
And then, let's see, Mom had a couple of canaries in the house, and I really loved the way they sing. But my favorite story about Mom's got to be with the RV. Because we were emptying out the RV, the black tank, the toilet tank.
No, you
And
have to start.
Huh?
You have to start a little earlier. He told me to take it to the service station.
Well, you guys remember it better than I do. I remember.
I was going to go get some rubber gloves.
But he didn't tell me that.
Oh, I don't remember not telling you, but anyway, rubber gloves to dump the motorhome tanks.
And I'm in a skirt, a nice blouse, Sunday best.
So Brian and I went to the hardware store while she took the motorhome over to the gas station that had a dump station there.
And waited. And finally I thought, what happened to him? I guess they expect me to do it. So I parked it so I could do it and took off, lifted up the thing, put the hose in and did the hose. And all these little dollies.
The hose came off. She opened the valve and the hose come off.
And so all these little dollies are rolling down the driveway that goes like this.
And she's out there picking them up. When we drove up, and I had the gloves now.
We have two more people.
Sorry, I had to bring it up.
I just cherish the memories of playing games at the Andrew home. Every time I come, we usually play dice, pirate dice, and Grandpa usually kicks all our butts.
We learned he's a pretty good liar at that game. Let's see. I remember back in elementary school, Grandpa and Grandma would pick me up and drive us all out to Chino Airport to go flying. And we would go fly over Mission Viejo, where we lived, and we would circle around, and he'd say, "Look down, you see your family?" And I honestly would lie and go, "Yeah, I see him." Never really did see him. But everyone knew that Grandpa was flying over because I had a different pitch to the aircraft. Another favorite memory of mine was when I got to take Grandpa flying in my plane. And the funny thing was, we were coming towards John Wayne to land, and he goes, "Wow, it looks like I can get out and walk faster than what we're flying." My airplane's pretty slow. But that was a great memory. And Grandma, we always played games, and she always had ice cream, so those were the best mixes. And Grandma was a pretty good liar too sometimes. at Dice.
One of my favorite memories is doing the slide, but I was too young to slide down, so I'd sit on the tractor with Grandpa and spray everyone with the hose. And I think we still have a picture of it, right? Yeah, that's one of my favorite memories.
Okay, being next to last, I got the best bread. Grandma would bake homemade bread every week. And my school got out just the same time as the homemade bread. I would walk through the door, she'd just taken it out, and she says, "You want a piece of bread? It just came out of the oven." She would slice it down, put the butter on, it melted in, and we'd sit and eat our homemade, hot out of the oven homemade bread. That was the best treat. Every week, she made 5 loaves of bread every week, and I got the first slice. And then another story about Mom, we were on a family trip, but we got to go to youth conference as a family, and we met the ward. Was it the ward or the stake there? I was young, but all I remember is we got lost. Was it Lake Shasta? Lake Mead. Lake Mead? No, I think it was like Lake Shasta. I'd never been there. But anyway, we got lost. So who do we look to? What do we need to do? Because we don't know where we're going. Mom needs to say a prayer.
That was Lake Mead.
Yeah, that was
Lake Mead.
Lake Mead?
And that was the time that two of the boys, Brian,
Well, and Janice was going off to school.
Janice was going off to school, and two of the boys got ordained to different levels in the priesthood that time.
So we are in the van.
And it's night.
And it's nighttime, and we don't know where to go. So Grandpa pulls over, and Mom says the prayer. And within 1, maybe 2 minutes, someone from the ward drives by, and we're able to follow him into camp and figure out where to go. We always know that if Mom's gonna pray, it's gonna happen. So be careful what you pray for.
Times, Mom's prayers have been answered.
Immediately.
Immediately.
And all us kids.
It always makes me feel better, even though I'm not the biggest believer in everything. I always feel better when she's praying for us. And things always do get better, so.
That leads into a story that Grandma has, if you want to put that on her.
All right. Well,
That
I didn't
is-
tell mine about you, so you have to wait 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Because you and I, being the last one at home in high school, I got to go to Chino, like Skylar, but I got to go a lot. One, I did not like to see Dad go by himself. And Mom won't fly with him because I'm still at home. So she wouldn't fly still until I graduated with Dad yet. So I got to spend time with Dad out at the airport, and I loved it. Still love to fly, but pilot's license isn't coming. But still had great memories, loved time with Dad. And the other memory with Dad is, you see what he's wearing, grandkids? This is what he wore his whole life. He did mix it up. He'd put on a pair of khakis, mix up the color a little bit, but he would come home from work in a suit coat, suit pants, white shirt, tie. And Ray and Brian and Diane and myself and the neighborhood boys from down the street and a couple streets over knew that we would play football, tag football on our street. And on some nights, Dad would put down his suit coat, still in his dress shoes, suit pants. Maybe he'd take off a tie. I can't remember, but he would come play tag football with us. So tomorrow, then it was tag. We didn't have flags. That was fancy. But tomorrow we're all going to play some flag football to bring back some memories of just playing, having a good time, and having Dad out there with us. Ray would call the plays on his hand, his little left hand, and I'd see that finger go. I can see play after play on Ray's hand. But with Dad out there with us in his suit clothes.
We have the best yard.
Oh, yeah. You were graduated, you were in college. Yeah, you and Janice were in college by then, so.
Gary, capture the flag too.
Oh, yeah, capture the flag, hide and go seek, he was out there with us. All right, so let's go back to Grandma and Grandpa.
I was so angry because my friends would come over and you had the file cabinet with all the permission slips so people could come over and jump on the trampoline. And my friends would come over and I would try to be able to get them to jump and you're like, nope, you gotta go home to get the permission slip. And I would get so mad. And now I just think you're a genius. I don't care what it is. You come to my house, just sign the permission slip and you can do whatever you want. As long as you don't sue me if you get hurt, like that's the best. I really appreciate that.
Good.